Okay, we're up to Daf Chav Zayin. Just to recap a little bit what we did and segue into what we're going to do today. We saw halacha according to Rabbi Yochanan that mitzvah Nazir halacha l'mosh b'Sinai that mois stumos, if you have money stam, the guy dies. The Mishnah Meila, the guy dies, or our Mishnah that the husband was made for Hanaziris, so no longer is the person a Nazir, but the money was not mifureshes, it wasn't designated for its specific carbon. Used to be the chatos, the shlamim and the oila. Then we had halacha l'mosh b'Sinai yipul and adava. They went to what to be a carbon oila. Look, a kid's kites mizbeach, and the mizbeach was what was slow. Okay, we ended off yesterday's share with the idea that it has to be what was left over was mois, money. It had to be something that is readily available, either kesef or shava kesef. So therefore, Rav Huna told us in the name of Rav, if the guy would have designated had a behemoth that he put aside behemoths for his karban naziris, right? Let's see, put away behemoths for karban naziris to sell, right? Since you have to wait for them, they have kedushas aguf. Since they have kedushas aguf, you can't be pointed them till they get a mum. So that's not considered mois, and that therefore would not be considered stumois. It would be considered mifurashos. And therefore, the money would go, we said, would have chatas mixed in there and would go to ibud. Money would be lost. That was, but what about the aims of balei mumim? The balei mumim, meaning they're readily able to be sold. Then that would have a lach of stumas. You'd sell the money and you go ahead, take the money and use it l'nedafa. However, what about a nascha? What about a piece of an ingata, right? That is not used so much as currency, and therefore that would not be available. And Rav Nachman Yitzchak disagreed. He said even nasla would be considered money and would be up in a dava. However, a stack of beams that's used for building, that would not be. Right? And now we're up to Amal Le Rav Simi Bar Ashi Le Rav Papa. That's what we're up to. Amal Le Rav Simi Bar Ashi Le Rav Papa. We're up to Chaf Vav Amid Beis. We're up to Chaf Vav Amid Beis. Amal Rav Simi Bar Ashi Le Rav Papa. Mai Tamayu de Rabbanon. What's the reason the Rabbanon? Right, the meaning Rav and Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak that we just mentioned. Dama mois v'loy behema, mois and not behema tamima, mois v'loy nascha, mois v'loy savra and not a stack of beams. Okay, el miyata mois v'loy oifos. And now we should say money and not oifos. Okay, we know there are certain people outside who bring birds. Some people they bring birds l'chatchila. We said in Nazir that's tamei. And we say that some birds bring b'di'eved. They're poor. From its sorrow that's poor brings birds. One is a chatas, one is an oila. Good. We're going to see that the designation of the birds can take place only at one or two times. Either the time the owner bought it, or if the owner fails to go ahead and do it, then at another time when the kayin brings it. Okay. So therefore, our oif is considered ma'is. Our oif is considered money. In other words, if a person would die, if it's considered money, they will be yipl in a dava. But if it's not considered money, then they should go ahead and they'd be destroyed because you have a chatas. You don't know which is the chatas. You don't know which is the oila, right? And the problem with birds is there's no din of pediya. You can't be paid the birds. There's no pidyon by birds. So memela, the halacha should be the following: since you left the birds, the guy dies, and you left without designation. But since you can't go ahead and it's not readily available to sell, it's not money. So it should be halacha that it's mifurashos, and they should be what? They should be destroyed. Yet we find that the kohen is able to go ahead. If the husband did designate it, the kohen could designate it. Why could he designate it? It should be considered, since it's not readily available to be sold, it should be no different than beams. It should be no different than an animal that's tamim, that's not readily available to be sold. So that's the kasha from oifus. Fed the Gemara, ela me'ata me'oifus, mois v'loy that mois v'loy oifus, that in fact oifus should not be able to be sold. It should be mifurashos. The chitema, and if you're going to tell me hachanami that a man dies and leaves over birds and that are not designated, it's considered mifurashos, and the money would have to go leibud because you have chatas shemesa baila mixed in. Elahadam Rav Chista. Ein hakinim is parashos. Kinim is the lashon of a nest, a set of two birds. Is parashos, they don't get the designation one or two times. Either with the being bought by the owner, and if he fails, asiyas kayin. Now the question is, why could the kohen be able to designate it? The only thing that what is considered not designated is money. And clearly, oifes guys is not money because you can't get rid of them. You won't be able to sell it because you can't do padiyah. Yet we see that nonetheless, that even though you can't readily sell something, they're considered stumos. So now that's the kasha. But on the mandionim that said a nascha or a stack of beans or a behema tamima is not considered money, why is it different than oifes? Oifes is not readily sellable, yet you're able to go ahead and say it has a din of yipnul and it can designate it. So that's the kasha. So Amalei, so a papa told Rav Simi, who asked him this question, and according to your reasoning, now, according to Rav Simi, fellas, what's the inference? So behema tamima would be considered what? Would be considered mefarashis, right? It would be considered stumais, according to you. According to you, that what? That the oifes are stumais, so also the animals should be considered stumais. Meaning if he designated animals and died, but no, he didn't designate it, he just died and he separated the animals without being mefarish them, it should be considered stumais. We see that's not true. Hatit Reb Shimon says, let's say this Nazir left 3 animals. He left a female sheep, a male sheep, and an ayil. A male sheep is a year old, an ayil is 2 years old in a month. So what's the difference? So over there, even though he did designate, you could bring them as karbanis. But one second, if the stumais, you should be ipul and adava. Again, it's either one or 2 things. You could 3 things actually. You could mifurashes use them as their proper karbanis. Stumais being the dava, or mifurashes, and you don't know, and it's mixed in the chatas, you can't use them for anything. Those are the 3 possibilities. Good. If you're telling me that animals that the guy separated, even though he didn't designate them, are considered stumais, then they should be yipul and adava. They should not be able to be brought as their own carbon. The ayil as the shlamim, the male sheep as an oila, and the female sheep as a chatas. They should all be sold and go in adava. Again, according to you. Again, what's the kasha? You, Rav Simi, are saying something that's not readily available is still considered stumos, whereas Uriah from birds are not readily, you can't sell them, yet nonetheless they're considered stumos. So animals that are tamim, even though it's hard to sell because you have to wait to get them, also be considered stumos. So the halacha should be, it's yiblun and adava. But as we're going to see in the Gemara now, it's not yiblun and adava, that they're usable. But the non Hevi shalish behemais. Again, he bought 3 behemais, and each one is the correct one. V'loy pirish, and when he separated them, he didn't say which goes to which. Haruya lechatas takrav chatas. The female sheep brought a chatas. La'oila, the male sheep takrav oila. The shlamim, the ayil takrav shlamim. Says the Gemara, Amai. Why would that be like that? Ha'amit behema lav kimufresh tami. According to Rav Simi, a behema is not kimufresh. It's like a stuma. Such be little nedava. I just did a very hard Gemara in a very concise way with a very large taisus, guys. Just be happy, okay? I think the format is very good. The 3 possibilities really breaks it down very nicely, right? Let's just go over it again. If it's sasam, it's yipul and adava. If it's mefurish designated, the 3 are okay, and the chatas that dies goes, that's lamisa. If it's mefureshes but mixed together, then all the money goes because you have the chatas mixed in. Good. You want to say, okay, very good. You want to say that a nascha, a behema tamima, let's go over the behema tamima, a nascha, and a beams, all of them are not readily moist. You can't sell them, and therefore what? They should be the third ladder, the mixed in, right? The mixed in chatas, and the whole thing should go fafalin. Says the Gemara. You see, oifais is not readily, and yet it has a din of sasum. Says the Gemara, I'll ask you a question with a question. So Papa says to Rav Simi, I have a case of animals that the guy was not mefarish. He put sasam, he left the 3 animals, and yet on the hand they have a din of what? Of mefureshes, right? So how can you say automatically just because you can't sell them easily, it's stumos? Here we have 3 animals that are mefureshes. And these 3 animals are the first level, right? The level of 1, 2, 3, you can use each one properly. And then one died over here, so you can even bring the chatas. So Amalei, so Rav Simi told Rav Papa, Hassam, oh no, it's different. You can't compare a behema to my case from birds. It says the pasuk says. It's two psukim. The first one pasuk says, if he can't afford a sheep, so he's poor. He takes two birds, either turtle doves or doves. So it says over here, it says that he goes ahead and he buys them, right? So you see B'shas buying. Then it says v'asa hakayin esa echad. This is in a different parsha. So it says one place says v'lakach, one place says v'asa. One place it says v'lakach, one place it says v'asa. Amrachmana ibil kichas bailim, either b'kichas bailim, ibasias kayin. So therefore, it was a very good question. Why should you be able to do that if they're considered mifrashais? So he answered hachanami over here. Mimatzis amrit. Over here by the three animals, Mimatzis amrid hadin lechatis takavoila hachanakeva. So therefore, over here you also can't say that. In other words, what are you going to say over here? You're going to say over here that you're going to bring that it's mixed together. It can't be mixed together. Each one has its own designation. So even without being mefarish, each one will be able to bring for its right thing. There's no way you can bring the chatas and oila as the oila as a zachir. It would not work. Okay. So therefore, Rav Papa disagrees with Rav Simi, and he says if you buy the three behemoth stam, they wouldn't be nikvus. All right, they would not be nikvus. He disagrees with Rav Simi. In other words, Rav Simi, you say those three animals are designated. He argues with that.
Like, I understand the birds he's only taking because he can't afford. So, but he would normally make a difference.
But the Siba doesn't make a difference. The question is, it got to be one of three categories. You're telling me it's category A. I have a right, it's category B. The answer is we have a Gezeres HaKos of it's category B versus category A. That's all it is, Hesh. Doesn't mean the Siba, why you bring it doesn't make a difference. It's like, what designation does it get? Is it a stuma? What title are you going to get it? You're going to call it a Saslam, you can call him a Firish. That's the Shaila. Okay. Gemara goes weiter. Maser Nuna. Okay, now we're going to ask on. We're going to go ahead and ask now on the balas mum. Why did you say a behemoth that's a balas mum? You're able to go ahead. This is yesterday's daf. The last part is considered money, and therefore it's considered stuma. A guy separated animals. They're balei mumim. You can't bring them as a carbon. They don't have kedushas aguf. They only have kedushas damim. Good. They have kedushas damim. We stated that it would be considered a stuma, and therefore, if the guy dies, you'd sell them, and you would bring you bring case the mizbeach. That's what we're stating. Maser Rav Nuna. Do you say a behema that's a balas mum is kistuma? Right now, let's go with the rush over here. We have a girsa over here. Basically, guys, here's what happens: a guy's father's a nazir, and the father dies, and he leaves over money, right? Or can the son use this money if he's makabel naziris? So the outside is if the son is not a nazir and is makabel naziris, he could use the previous money of his dead father. Conversely, if the son was a nazir simultaneously with his father, then he would not be able to. The Gemara is a little megumgim. I'm going with the girsa of the rush. It says the rush. When his father's a nazir, the hifish moyes stumel in his yusay. V'amar haben harini nazir amanash galeach al moyes abba harizem galeach al moyes abba. Then now he goes ahead and says, I will be a nazir and I will take a haircut, meaning I'll bring my karbanis using the money of my father for my naziris. He could do that. However, they both were nazirim. In other words, they were makabel nazirim simultaneously. The hifish of them moyes stumim, and his father had separated money that was sasum, umes, and then he dies. V'omra ben, and then the ben says, harini megaleach al moyes abba yiplu nedava. Then we go ahead and fall linedava. Okay, so what about if he has animals? So back in the Gemara now. You see where it says the Bach Beis? Go down 2 lines. If the father separated the animals, Chatas Tamus, the Chatas dies, because it's Chatas Shemesa Baleha. Oila takra voila, ushlamim yakriv ushlamim. My love, when it says behema, why afilu balas mum? Even what? Even the behema could be even it could even be what? A balas mum. So you see that what? That a balas mum would also it would be considered what? Not money. What's the lashon over here? My love, the money stuma that fell would only be money. But if he goes ahead and he separates animals, even if the animals are balei mum, then it would go leibud. Even if it's balei mum, you're telling me that, guys, again, what's the kasha? Let's go back. You're telling me balei mum have a din of money. Since they did have a din of money, yipnul in a dava, right? Over here, you're telling me that what? That the behemoth that they separate, what would go lamus, and one would be. So the Gemara wants to know that my love, it's so when it says behema, even the animals would be behema, it would be a balas mum. And we wouldn't say that Allah Chamosh Sinai that slipnul in the dava. And this is Shver and Rav Nachman who said on the Yom Beis yesterday that the bal mum is a din kestumim. So again, kasha. You, Rav Nachman, said that bal mum is considered gelt. You see over here from this Mishnah that this brisa that behema is not considered gelt. Ma behem, not only not a behema tamima, even a behema bal mum is not considered gelt. Kasha, when you said it is considered gelt. And what's the Gemara's answer? Loi tamima, dafka tamima. Aval balas mum kistuma damya. Right? A balas mum is considered stuma. Why? Because you can sell it. It's shava kesef. So Fred the Gemara kasha. So Ma'ir Yamois, why did you limit yourself and say Mois? Lema Hoisla Behema Balasmum Yipul in a Dava. Tell me a bigger Kiddush. Guys, Madach Geld, which is there, you could sell. Tell me a bigger Kiddush. Balmum, that even though you have to go through the action of selling it to buy an animal. In other words, it's two steps. Buy money, it's one step. Money, buy animals, bring them as an Adava. By here to Balmum, it's two steps. Selling it, taking that money, and buying animals from the dava. If that's the case, that it's considered geld, why do you limit the chiddush? Why do you tell me the lesser chiddush money? Tell me the bigger chiddush would have been balmum. Lema hoisla balmum yiflun dava. Says the Gemara hachanami shebalmum lemay kitcha l'demei udemei hanamais. In other words, it's the same thing. It's synonymous. It's synonymous. In other words, I guess this is just a means of explaining it. You can barter those animals balmum for the animals that are tamim and bring l'nedava. In other words, there's shava kesef. So just like kesef is a one-step process, huadin is balmum one-step process. They're only kaddish for its value. It's not kaddish leguf. It's kaddish for its value. So take its value, whatever it is. Go to a moicha of cattle, say or a small livestock, and say, here, this is kaddish. I want it, it's worth X amount. What is it worth? Let's be paid it on this. Go ahead and use it. So therefore, says the Mishnah, your kasher is, why don't you tell me the bigger chiddush? It was stated already. By stating money, you did state balmum, because there's no difference between a balmum and gelt. They're both readily available to go ahead and sell. Okay. I'm a supik whether to go further or just call it, because what it is, guys, now is one long brisa to the next Mishnah, a very long brisa to the next Mishnah, of which we only need one line, and it's the same kasha. We're going to ask about balmum, and we're going to ask, and then we're going to answer that it's the demay. So I really can hold off till tomorrow, just to have a reason for guys coming in. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. I wish you all a great day, and B'ez Hashem will see you tomorrow.